A very pleasant day to my supervisor and my esteemed panel. Today, I'm going to present my final year project entitled Assessing Environmental Policies and Management Practice at Port Klang and its challenges towards achieving SDG 14, which is life below water. To begin, the global civilization has relied on the oceans for economic expansions, transforming modern ports into complex multimodal nodes where sea, rail, and road networks meet. But however, the globalization accelerates and creates intensive new trading patterns where it brings a critical global drawback, a severe surge in maritime environmental degradation that directly threatens our coastal ecosystems. For the research background, looking specifically at our nation context, Malaysia is a maritime powerhouse, consistently ranking in the top 5 in liner shipping connectivity index, alongside nations such as China and Singapore. Yet, the background of this study hinged on a major shift in the maritime industry. Port competitiveness is no longer measured purely by how many containers are moved. True competitiveness now depends on the non-business factors, on like how well a port manages its relationship with its natural surroundings. The core issue driving this project is the implementation effectiveness gap. While Malaysia excels at signing and ratifying international environmental treaties on papers, the physical coastal waters surrounding Port Klang still face heavily pollution pressures. This gap exists because port operators face high technological compliance, which costs a lot, and manual tracking system, which allows illegal bilge dumping to go unnoticed and overlapping the jurisdiction that weaken the regulatory enforcement. So, for my research objective and research questions, to systematically unpack this issue, my study is guided by 3 matching research question and objective. So firstly, I identify the exact legal and operational rules currently active in the Port Klang to achieve SDG 14. Secondly, I investigate the precise factors and the bottlenecks that blocks the successful enforcement in Port Klang. And finally, I propose a realistic or a data-driven strategies to modernize the port governance. So for my literature review, firstly, we are looking at the maritime environmental governance and IMO frameworks. So this literature highlights that the global maritime activities are governed internationally by the IMO, or also known as International Maritime Organization, through instruments such as MARPOL, marine pollution, for vessel source waste, and the BWM Convention for invasive aquatic species, and the OPRC for oil spill response preparedness. Nationally, this is anchored by Malaysian-owned federal legislation, which is the Environmental Quality Act 1974. For my second part, we are looking at the SDG 14 and the relevance to port operations. We have 4 points for SDG 14, which is target 14.1, to reduce marine pollution, target 14.2, to manage and protect the marine ecosystem, target 14.3, which is minimize and address the ocean acidification, and last but not least, target 14.c, which is the implementation of international law as reflected, which is UNCLOS. For the third part is marine and port related water pollution. So according to scholars like Yuan et al. 2023, active transshipment hubs create severe waste management risks, including the legal bilge water and oily residue discharge. Furthermore, studies also prove that critical port operations like maintenance dredging create immediate ecological stress by disturbing heavy metals and severely spiking water turbidity and the total suspended solid, or also known as TSS. And last but not least, the port environmental management practice. The literature also established that successful environmental protection depends entirely on 3 operational tools. So, adequating and affordable port reception facilities, or PRF, as discussed, strict monitoring and enforcement, and seamless stakeholder coordination as been mapped out in Port Klang. for the methodology part, since environmental governance involves complex human relationships, policy wording, and institutional barriers, a purely quantitative approach wouldn't suffice. In this case, I chose a qualitative case study design. I gathered data by checking corporate sustainability reports and regulatory laws, and complemented this with targeted semi-structured interviews with officers from Department of Environment, Port Klang Authority, and terminal operators. The data was then processed using thematic analysis to isolate our core systematic challenges. For my first finding, it has been revealed that Port Klang operates on a dual governance strategy. Land-based pollution trying to enter port waters is handled federally by the Environmental Quality Act 1974, or also known as EQA 1974, while ship source pollution is governed by International MARPOL annexes integrated into Port Klang Authority within the circulars. While the legal foundation is rock solid, the actual protection of marine life remains fragile due to enforcement gaps. Secondly, we are looking at why the system struggles. Firstly, ecotech like ballast treatment infrastructure is incredibly expensive, so port expansion often outpaces green upgrades. Then, the enforcement relies on manual hit and miss physical sampling. Because there aren't enough inspectors to monitor the hundreds of vessels which arrives daily, illegal dumping passes which are unnoticed by the workers. Lastly, when a pollution incident happens, agencies often pass the buck due to the overlapping jurisdiction. For my third findings, the thematic analysis of the data clearly reveal a science-based roadmap toward port modernization. First, the findings shows that absorb growing maritime waste streams safely. Port Klang must overhaul its reception hubs to handle automated segregation and plastic recycling. Second, the data also highlights an urgent need to migrate away from slow, manual water sampling and transition into a green smart port setup. By installing automated telemetry sensors across terminal basins, it can continuously monitor water quality parameters in real time. For the limitations, every rigorous academic studies has boundaries, and it is important to address the limitations of this project openly. First, due to the tight schedule of high-ranking port and environmental officers, primary data collection was restricted due to structured email correspondence over a 3 to 4 weeks period rather than to face-to-face dialogues, which prevented the real-time probing. Second, this study is entirely qualitative. It maps administrative and institutional implementation gaps based on expert perceptions and reports, meaning I did not conduct independent chemical or ecological sampling of the water. Finally, because Port Klang sits right at the mouth of the heavily polluted Klang River, completely separating ship source pollution from the massive volume of the industrial waste flowing down from upstream urban areas remains an ongoing analytical challenge. For the discussion, it is synthesized these problems. If a port waste facilities take too long or charge opaque, expensive fees, ship masters face commercial pressure and maybe choose illicit ocean dumping. Furthermore, because the Port Authority has no legal power to regulate factories miles upstream along the Klang River, the port continuously absorbs land-based toxins despite maintaining internal operational compliance. This proves that port sustainability cannot look at the sea in isolation from the land. In conclusion, Port Klang has the legal tools required but lacks the model technical infrastructure to enforce them effectively in the face of the rapid economic growth. By prioritizing advanced waste reception facilities and investing in real-time digital telemetry networks, Port Klang can move past fragmented manual surveillance. The shift will transform it from a reactive commercial hub into a proactive, eco-friendly gateway that genuinely preserves marine life in full alignment with SDG 14, Life Below Water. For the recommendation, we can offer two major operational recommendations. First, the Port Klang Authority must work with private operators to eliminate the economic and administrative friction that cause illegal dumping. This means keeping waste disposal fees predictable and reducing vessel turnaround delays, so ship masters naturally chose the lawful onshore route. Secondly, the PKA, or also known as Port Klang Authority, and Department of Environment must aggressively invest in a shared digital dashboard. This will shift their enforcement behavior from reactive to proactive, providing the irrefutable empirical evidence to swiftly trace and prosecute polluters, thereby safeguarding fragile coastal ecosystem in alignment with SDG target 14.1 and 14.2. Thank you very much to my supervisor and my esteemed panel, and I hope you have a nice day ahead.